coach, intuitive guide, and plant medicine facilitator. I'm also a survivor of childhood abuse, autoimmune issues, and my 30s. I'm on a lifelong healing journey, and along the way, I want to share the ideas and teachings that rock my world. Every week on Heartlight Sessions, I call in artists, healers, and thinkers to explore what's helped them live and thrive from a heart-centered place. Because the heart, it's where the best things happen. If you've ever wondered how to unlock your biggest breakthroughs or how to come back from that stuff that tried to kill you, you know the stuff I'm talking about, the stuff that's supposed to make you stronger. Or if you've ever wondered how to just do you straight from the heart, you're in the right place. So join me, won't you? Let's turn on that heart light. Turning on my heart light. 1,000 volts of sunshine. Hi, Ima.
Hello, dear.
I have my dear friend, Iman Kamel, joining me today on this beautiful day, May 6th. And I'm so grateful to have you. Ima is an amazing mind, an amazing heart, very interesting human. She's a filmmaker, a cultural diplomat, an Egyptian shaman, a teacher. She's the creator of the Holographic Being accelerator, and now she's evolving into a whole new series of work. So, hi.
Hi, dear. What a beautiful introduction.
Thank you. So, I want to talk about your shift away from like filmmaking and into being an Egyptian shaman, in your work with the Holographic Being, which is your body of work, and how this is all rooted in Egyptian cosmology. You're Egyptian. You were born where? Born and raised where?
I was born in Cairo. I'm not called Egyptian anymore. But yes, this is my roots. This is the river where I come from. And yes, like it's really interesting because this new body of work came to me. I was in Egypt. I was in a sabbatical in a little village on the west bank of Luxor, writing my previous book. And everybody was saying, hey, you have to go to the Dendera temple. And I was saying, but there are so many temples around me here in Luxor. Why should I go to the Dendera temple? But it kept coming and coming. So on my last day, I went into that temple. It was very quiet. It was almost empty. And suddenly I got into a celestial meeting. And I was prepared actually for such an encounter because a few years ago I was visiting the sanctuary of Sekhmet, of the lioness goddess, and she did something also very, very deep with me. She moved all of my fear frequencies out of my system in a deep encounter with her. And then from there, actually, the inquiry started. I started to understand that I have another phase in my life. And so when this celestial meeting happened, it happened very quietly. I was just by the lake outside. There were no guards. It was very quiet. And they were giving actually instructions about my new phase of work inside of the pandemic. And I didn't understand a word because I didn't even imagine what would come a week later. So actually just a week later, everything started. But I was prepared because I got instructions and I got that tool of the Akashic records into my system. And I didn't know anything about it. Magically enough, the next day, I met an Akashic reader and she opened my Akash and she said, the whole pantheon is around me and they want to work with me and I can open the Akashic records myself. So I started actually with friends, with colleagues. I was back to Cairo, then I was back to Germany, then I was traveling, of course, like always. So it started like that. It's actually opened itself up to me.
Cool.
And then the holographic being came into place when I understood that all of my bodies of work, all of my disciplines, they all belong together.
Mm.
The filmmaker, the cultural diplomat, the keynote speaker, the healer, and then I got this idea that actually the most power is when I bring it all into this new body of work. So that's why I brought it into the world. Also, the term the holographic being is bringing it all together, all your talents, all your experiences, all of your lifelines, because the Akash, they don't really see our lives in a linear time. They don't have past, present, and future. They actually work always in the now. And this holographic time being, or this holographic living and working and acting inside of this world, was mirrored in that term. So I used it as my brand for this whole new operation. And then I birthed this program, the
Okay.
Holographic Being Accelerator, into the world.
Let's explain a little bit to people in case they don't understand like what the Akashic records are.
Mm-hmm.
So the Akashic records are basically a universal library, a library that holds the records of every thought you've ever made, every action in all time space continuum. Is that I think that's a good way to describe it.
It's a beautiful way to say it. Like I am actually, since that work has been birthed, I'm actually inquiring into it because there is science behind it. Erwin Laszlo has really put us in front of a body of work.
Who is
It's
that?
Erwin Laszlo is a
Okay.
physicist,
Oh, wow.
and yes, and then what is happening here is that we have Sishat in our Egyptian pantheon.
What is
She
that?
is she is the female counter to Thoth, to
Okay.
Hoti.
Okay. Can you say her
So
name
he's the
again?
scribe. He is the one who wrote the Emerald Tablets and many, many, many other books. He's the one who is actually entering this world, helping a lot of newcomers, of energy workers, of light workers to bring their work forth and their visions forth. So Sishat has come and entered the field from the beginning. She's now on my logo, as she is the keeper of the records in the Egyptian lineage.
Mm.
What is happening here is that actually everybody can access the Akash. What is happening here is that the Akashic lords, they transmit through me a vision. So you don't come to me with specific questions and then you get an answer. It's not divinatory at all. It's actually transmitting a whole blueprint of your lifelines
Mm.
into one that is most eminent for you now,
Mm.
even from the future, even from the past. So, this grand vision, I take that grand vision and make it as a kind of foundation for my programs. I was talking about the Holographic Being Accelerator, where I designed a 3 weeks online program. It was in a time where we were all in retreat. I call it
Yep.
global retreat. And we designed that field. I call it almost like a CERN in Switzerland. It's like a potent field where multidisciplinary, multidimensional professionals from across this globe come together in an immersion, in a process to break through barriers, to cross the threshold, and look into all of their hidden talents and bring it all together into one vision.
Yeah. I did one of your accelerators in 2020.
You
And
were the foundation
oh, really?
accelerator.
Okay.
Yes.
It was amazing. And I think there was 12 people or 16 people.
We have the mandala of 12 people.
Yeah.
Sometimes it goes until 16, but because I would like to craft the virtual circle, it's a very intimate space to design. So yes,
Yeah.
it goes into 12,
Yeah.
14, sometimes 16, into this deep process.
Yeah.
And from there, from these editions and from these experiences, I had the urge, because it's 3 weeks and you enter that accelerator
It's
and then you are
intense.
actually on your own.
It's so intense. It was so
Yes.
amazing, so life-changing. I mean, I think it really pivoted like how I'm now working in the world and what I want to do, because what it did was it really got me in touch with sound frequency. And that's when I started, like through your accelerator program, that's when I started to channel sound. And I gave myself permission. And I was always into sound and understanding sound, but something about the accelerator, it dropped me into understanding sound in the healing frequency and the healing vibration and what I could actually do with sound through my body, and it also got me dancing and getting in touch with my body again. It just totally changed and pivoted the whole my whole trajectory in my life. So yeah, so it was a profound program.
Yeah, it's really interesting that you are sharing, because I had always this urge to bring that work into another level of operation. So, you know about this, that last year I had this very debilitating illness and going into the Netherlands, going into the darkness. It's beautiful when you brought in the Blue Lotus, because last year I was on a pilgrimage with 12 amazing women in Egypt on a beautiful boat, traveling across the Nile and visiting the temples that I never have visited before. And the Blue Lotus was an essential being, an encounter, because it almost disappeared from Egypt. And then, with a lot of work and guardians, and even me as a homeopath, about 5 years ago, I did a homeopathic medicine out of the Blue Lotus. So something really magical happened. The Blue Lotus entered into the Egyptian space again. And this encounter with that medicine is very deep. I got very sick. It was very tough for us to travel every day, but it was so deep. And when I went into my illness, I went into the duat. I went actually like a lotus. I
Mm.
went into the mud. I went into this fertile space. It's almost like this divine womb space. Okay, I had a lot of pain and it was a very, very hard time. But from this perspective, now I can understand and I can grasp that this is an initiation.
Yes.
Because then the power surge, like as soon as I had the operations, it was an odyssey, of course, first. So it took months and months where I wasn't even able to speak or swallow or smile or move even without pain. So what happened is that I had a surgery, a very, very fine surgery. And after that, everything started to come towards the light, coming forth by day in our language. And I felt the surge of energy, and I felt it's almost like the thrust of this lotus coming to the surface. And I understood that there are processes of the blue lotus that I loved.
Mm.
I was in the primal mud. Then the seeking of the light is the second phase. And the third phase is the luminous ascent. So you come out and you start to feel the light, and then you come into a blossoming, a sudden blossoming. It's always unpredictable when a lotus flower will blossom. And
Mm.
then the fifth phase is you get into a sacred seeding. It's an urge, it's a yearning to bring your work into this world.
Wow.
So what happened is I was very sick, actually, still very, very, very weak. So I actually started to work on this book. to write these phases, to work with these emergence, like almost like meditations or shamanic journeying, or you can call it whatever you want to call it. For the beginner, it would be almost only just listening and daydreaming. For advanced people, they would really journey with these emergence like I did, because this process has actually helped me. I was the very first tester of this process, and I'm very, very lucky because this book will be released by the end of this year. Out of that book, we immersed the program, the 3 months program, the Alchemist Leadership Program, because I felt many entrepreneurs, many artists, many leaders, they feel so stuck.
Yeah.
They feel like they're doing great work, they are very successful. There's something missing, Jenny.
Yeah.
There's an inner calling, there is an inner yearning to align with this inner, like, exactly like what happened with me. Like I was in the middle of writing a book, filmmaking, and suddenly this whole body of work came to me, and I accepted it and I opened myself to it. So I designed that program to help beyond the 3 weeks accelerator and immersion, to help these people to realize their vision and their unique frequency.
Mm-hmm. And what does that, like when you say unique frequency, what does that mean? It's someone's soul blueprint, but beyond that, like it's a culmination of everything, all their skills, their passions.
Yeah, like I have been seeing this again and again and again, that most people would say, this is my hobby, this is my work, this is my business,
Yeah.
this is my role as a mother. And then it fragments the energy. Just imagine like a river, and then it splits up in many streams. So what happens here is that I feel like it's a feeling, it's a mission, it's a vision of me, that when you bring it all together, there is your unique vision, your unique frequency. What I mean by that is that there is a lot of hidden properties
Got it.
across your lifelines.
Yes.
There are some neglected so-called hobbies. There is a business that brings you money, but you don't know how to bring it into your passion and alignment.
Yeah.
So these are the questions, and also stuck into the boardrooms and to-do lists. So I brought in, and this is the power of this new phase of the operation, I brought in playfulness. I actually healed myself and brought this whole new body of work through playfulness. I started to play with the strategies. I started to question the strategies of the Holographic Being Accelerator. I started to find new ways of entry. I started to to work with these entrepreneurs, and like they don't really have time. So I started to find out ways to implant 5 minutes exercises or strategies for their continuous writing. For example, if they want to write a book, or they want to birth a new vision or a new business. So I started to bring in all of my fields of expertise, like healing, branding, storytelling, imagining, of course, mentoring. I started to bring it all into that power of playfulness.
Mm.
It's very creative. Just see children how they play. It's very creative, it's very disruptive, and it crosses the threshold very easily, effortlessly. This is a notion, this is the modus. I have to work effortlessly in this new phase. I have understood that this body can shut down very easily. So effortlessly, playfully, we actually brought in the acronym HOPE. because, like I was birthed again. I was very near to cross on the other side, but I was birthed again. I brought back, so the determination and the power of the vision is even stronger now. And the holographic opportunities for playful entrepreneurship is bringing it all together. So we can work through the Egyptian Hetero. So they are powers, they are energies, they are presences in our life. If you know it or not, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah. Can I ask, how does one access, for me, like it's always something I wanted to learn about the Egyptian cosmology, but I felt like it was so far from me, just being like a white girl in America, it's like, how do we, access the Egyptian cosmology in a way that like is relatable, and is it something we all can have access to? These are living energies.
Actually, it's like a lover coming into your life. Um, it happens very spontaneously if you open yourself to it. And I have developed and unfolded many strategies of how to bring these energies, these living, vibrant beings. They are eager to help you. They are eager to go through you, to permeate your life, to empower your vision, to empower your creativity. So actually, there is nothing to do. It's not a system, it's not a method. It's actually the receptivity, the sensitivity, the yearning for it.
So, but do you need to invite them in? How does that work?
Yeah, so it's actually no work.
Thank you.
That's the new work.
No
It's
work
no
is the
work
new work.
at all. Actually, I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding. It's not work because in this new time that we have here, the veils are very thin, and there are so many ways of how to open oneself, to open yourself to the Akash realm, to these beings. I love to work with many, many levels, as you know, about the holographic being, of course. So I engage every aspect of it, the analytical aspect, the imaginative aspect, the power aspect, the energy aspect, the strategic aspect, because every Netero, like Thoth or Tehoti, is different than Isis. Isis is for healing. Hathor is for accessing the sound and the music and the joy. Anubis is the guide when you want to go into the underworld and you want to express. You don't want to dive and drown in the underworld. I don't really advocate shadow work, because then you are on that side and you can live your whole life in shadow work. But of
Really?
course, Anubis can bring you down into this underworld to understand and grasp some energies of you, to come back into your life, to come back into your vision. So there are so many ways. We have brought this program into a 5 phase, exactly like these 5 phases of the lotus. With, we start with the Akashic reading, it's the blueprint, it's your vision. And then we start to unravel it. The first phase is breaking through limits, burning old stuff, old beliefs, and then it goes into the phases of starting to really bring all of your talents and skills and dreams and visions together. And then it will go from one phase to the other in a strategically way, ending with the manifestation. I love to manifest. I love to bring it into this world, because we are living into this world. We want this world to be different. We want heaven on earth. It's real. It's my mission. So we work, of course, on strategies and concepts, how to bring it forth.
And as far as working with some of the beings like Hathor, or is this part of the program, or is this just is it just purely working with the Blue Lotus?
No, 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 no. We adapt, so to speak. So there are many ways of how to do this. You will find your own being that you are working with.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, every phase has its own power and its own vibrance. For example, when we go into manifestation, Ptah, the architect, and the opener of the mouth, the opener of your vision, expressing it, will come in. Sekhmet is beautiful in the beginning because she can burn out beliefs, old systems, residual. So we bring in the Netero as living powers inside of the program. But then, of course, at one point, and of course, I'm working a lot with guided meditations. So very spontaneously, if some being is eminent for you now, I will be able to channel this. But you will too.
Mm-hmm.
You will be opening yourself too to receive the power. We are in an age, there are no mediators or priests. We don't need
Right.
gurus.
Right.
We can, yes, we can be inspired by teachers or guides, or or inspired by me as a passionate, as a passionate pusher or passionate companion, or like that. But actually, you are a sovereign being that is able to do all of that on your own once we have ignited that process.
So, as far as like the 5 stages of the Blue Lotus, was this like something that was brought to you during your initiation and your kind of dark night of the soul, these 5 steps, or has this always been the 5 steps of the Blue Lotus, like the seeding? And is this like a universal knowledge, or is this something that was delivered to you?
Okay, so it's actually not steps,
Mm-hmm.
because it can happen in one day. These five
Okay.
phases can happen in one day. It can go across all of your lifetime. So there is no time, or there is no method, or there is no linearity in my work at all. Exactly like the Akash is teaching me, I am always in this holographic perception of it. So why the 5 steps? When I was working with my book and with all of these emergence flooding into my being, into my field, I tried to structure it. So I structured it by observing the lotus. I have been when I was living in Berlin. Of course, I would always observe lotuses everywhere in this world. But when I was living in Berlin, I was living by a pond of lotuses. So I would stay for days and hours just watching the lotus, just watching it blossoming or sinking down. So when I started to structure my book, I brought in these 5 phases, but they are very much permeating each other, very much flowing in each other. They are cyclic. So you can start somewhere in that phase. It doesn't start like step 1, step 2, step 3. So you can start somewhere, and then you will discover, now it's the time to go to the mud, to the fertile, fruitful space of retreat. Then you go into the primal mud. But then maybe you will not go through all of these 4 phases. Maybe you will go into sacred seeding, as I have been doing now. Like I'm coming out now because the energy is too strong. Like it wants to share. It's almost like a mother with filled breasts of milk,
Mm-hmm.
Hathor with her sacred milk. It just wants to share. It wants to give after such a long time of absence. So it's not rigid at all. Nothing is rigid in the holographic being space. That's where playfulness can come in, the creativity can come in. What is happening here with these 5 phases is that you have an orientation, what you need. Where would you need help? Where is it stuck? Why is it stuck? How can we bring it into that other phase? Either into the primal mud, because then you can regenerate, replenish, Or maybe you are in the blossoming and you want to seed out into this world. So then we birth your project, your book, your artwork, whatever it is. So it's actually also a very, very not only unique way, but also a very creative way for me to work with people.
Do you work with the Blue Lotus, ingesting it as far as that goes? Because I know that's a very like liminal plant that people often work with in the dream space that really brings a lot of visions. And
so I would say yes, I do take sometimes the lotus. But as you know, I actually love that the body, that the system from the inside out is empowering itself. So I don't really advocate outer agents.
Mm,
Even if I am a homeopath and a healer, and of course, sometimes you will be needing a remedy or a medicine like I did. What I love is the oil. I put one drop on my forehead, but I am very, very sensitive to outer agencies. Um, so I cannot do it on a daily basis. I'm very, very respectfully, reverently aware of the power of the Blue Lotus, also across the cultures. Um, this question is really interesting because the 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 surge, the emerging of the plant medicines and the crossings of thresholds and the unfoldings that are coming from here, it's very interesting. But I do believe, deeply believe, that you have everything you need here in that being, in that body. It's, like the Kundalini yoga says, it's 10 bodies, like there are so many different systems, but everything is in there. And I didn't know anything about the Akash. I didn't know anything about shamanism. In Egypt, nobody really knows even that term.
mm,
But I learned it through these teachings. Like I would be woken up in the nights to learn from my celestial teachers and teams.
mm,
And I would be guided. So, what I would say is guide yourself, open yourself, be open, be receptive, be receiving. Then you will decide, absolutely decide for yourself if you need the remedy or if you need the oil, or if you need just the encounter with it. Just, in homeopathy, I have given many mental remedies because there was no way to send anything during the pandemic or whatever. So you can also connect in so many ways and in playful ways,
mhm.
exactly like a child. Mm.
So sending a mental remedy would be like emitting the frequency.
A poem or a mantra, or
Mhm,
I will send an image cross, like I will, like I will think about it very deeply. I will think about the properties that we need from that remedy, because homeopathic remedies are also holographic. They have so many ways how they act, on which level they act, emotionally or physically or mentally. So yes, there are so many ways of how to act upon a remedy. So if you understand or grasp this vision of the Akash, of the unifying field, and then you start to grasp theories or concepts like the entanglement, the epigenetic field, like there are so many ways of actually how to connect through the unified field, and then send through the unified field, and then
mm.
receive through the unified field.
I love the idea of the emanation, of sending the emanation or just working with the emanation of something, even holding it to our eyes and the power of that, bringing it in through the eyes.
It's interesting because you are a sound being, and then you are talking about the eyes. So the multisensory, the kinesthetic, like the Akash, they don't really think or talk in six senses. For them, there are hundreds of senses. It's almost like, like you have the ground colors, and then an artist can create hundreds and thousands of colors out of these six colors. And we actually started to understand this in the 50s when they were working on the chaos theory, and they were so stunned by projects where the laboratories were far, far out from each other. And then they would discover that the apes would do exactly the same resolution and the same solution exactly at the same time across all laboratories.
Yep.
So the way of how we scientifically, experientially trying to really feel into that potent field, there are so many ways of how to work with the unifying field, how to work with the Akash, how to work with the Egyptian Neteru and all other beings that want to work with you. So it's almost like when I talk about children, is children want to play.
Yeah.
They would just knock on your shoulder in a playground and they want to play. They just want to play. The pantheon is very similar. They are eager to move through you because they are eager for the whole humanity, the whole human being, the holographic being to unfold, to bring in this heaven on earth, to bring in that potency, to leave behind all of this epigenetic, traumatic, ancestry, ages and ages and ages of trauma, of sensations, of pain, of imprints. We are able to transmute all of that inside of this unifying field.
That's beautiful. And when you were in the temple of Dendera and the celestial beings came to you, like, how did you know? I mean, I'm sure just the temple in and of itself is so high vibration. Like, my question is, how do we enter this field and work with these energies on this playground and make sure that we're working with energies that are, of our highest good? If we look at these higher beings as actually aspects of us. But, for you, like, how do you know that who you're working with is, a high caliber being?
Very interesting question. First of all, I always feel very protected. So like it's almost like an electric field, electromagnetic field. So you guard that field. And then with this initiation, it was like just imagine yourself in a boardroom. It was the whole meeting. There were many of them around me. And each of them had something to say, had something to, like to transmit. It was very long as well. So I started to ask questions, really questions, because I didn't even understand the word pandemic. I didn't really grasp it. Why are they talking and seeking pandemic in humanity? And so I started to ask questions, very clear questions, and then get very clear answers. So when, and also, as I told you a few years back, I had this encounter with Sekhmet, and there I was thinking I'm hallucinating. Because she started to come out of her status, and the sanctuary is very small and very dark, and I was there alone. And like that, there was a moment where I was thinking, oh, it's too hot, I'm hallucinating. But then a few minutes later, I grasped the the power and the magic of it. So I stamped my body, my feet into the ground, because it was such a power. So I just grounded myself and grounded myself and grounded myself and let her do the work, because she was almost like a science fiction being. Like she had an instrument, she was scanning my body up to down, horizontal and vertical, and she eliminated literally every frequency of shame, of fear, of ancestral trauma, and like she just did it in a few seconds, or a few minutes. I don't even know how long it was. And then from there, when you have this freedom in your body, you start to ask other questions. You start to inquire deeper into things. You start to be more fearless. You start to be, like then I started exactly like a child. I started to understand things. I started to ask questions that I never asked before. I started to see things that I never saw before. So when that celestial meeting with all of them happened in Dendera by the lake, like where I was just sitting by the lake, it was very clear it is a meeting. It's just a meeting, and if you give yourself to that meeting, so of course there is this choice, or this when you say yes, you have a choice, it is your choice. Actually, there is no choice, because they are giving you power for this world. They are giving you your own unique mission and vision into this world. So it's a gift. So you could say no, of course. Of course, you could. It's still your choice. But grappling with such a power, it's futile. I believe that when something like this comes to you, it's like the sun permeating the lotus, and the lotus petals open up. What a magical moment. So
that made me
when coming
cry.
back to your question, because I can see this everywhere, I actually closed up my clairvoyance for decades, because I was thinking about the feather in the wind. I was always describing it as a feather in the wind, and like very, very fragile, and then prone to so many other energies. Of course, you can go that way, but if you guard your field, if you are centered inside of yourself, you're very much being with yourself, then your field is so strong.
I'm curious, how, looking back now after you've gone through this initiation, this dark night of the soul, do you feel like this is something your soul called forth? Do you think this was a necessary evolution of your life?
No,
Okay.
I don't. And it was not dark night of the soul, it was a dark night of the body. And I don't believe that you have to go through this to arrive at. I don't.
I love that.
What is happening here is a forging process. It's like crafting the katana sword. So you want to bring that sword to this highest level of function and beauty and power. So I can see it like this. I can see that this forging forth, the burning of old stuff, I see that it is like a forging, like crafting the diamond, the last phases of crafting the diamond. But I don't believe that you need this. I don't even believe that suffering is absolutely, it's not necessary at all. um I do feel that the joy is our natural frequency, and it will always panel back exactly as it is now. Um, and I do feel that this is a hard, like it's almost like a hardware in the background of humanity. You have to suffer to arrive to this. You have to be working hard to arrive to that. And I don't see it like this. I went through that, and I opened myself to a new phase of operation, of new phase of healing. Of course, my healing powers are much stronger. My perceptions are much stronger, but also my madness is much stronger. Like I want to break through all barriers now. I want to break through all realms now. I can travel far, but I'm very grounded to this earth, because I know now that this earth is very precious. And I want also, and that's why we brought hope inside of this field. I want to cement playfulness and creativity inside of the field. I want to
love that.
cement the strategies of playfulness. I want to cement the disruptive energy of a child just storming into the room. It just, that's the power. That's the energy, and of course you can cross boundaries, or of course you can go into something that is not made for you, but with your GPS, inner GPS, very fast you will go back to your North Star, to your direction. Exactly like every river, they want to move towards the sea.
I love that the river is such a profound archetypal image for you, a living symbol. And I believe that the Nile is probably a huge part of that. How would you work with someone that comes to you that maybe they're like a high level CEO and they have no access, or they think they don't have access to their inner child? So many people close the door on that child.
All of us are doing this, me included. This is something that is hammered into us throughout the ages. And what I do is I start to find entries. You see, when a cat, there's just a tiny little opening in the door, maybe 1 millimeter or something, and then the cat will try everything, make herself small, permeate herself, like make herself whatever, and just open up that millimeter space to enter the room. This is how I work. And like, for example, I am working with high level CEOs, so they don't really have time or space or even energy. And then I start to implement 3 minutes exercises, or or playful between meetings, playful practices between meetings, or whatever. Like, it's the toolbox is full. So I'm just giving you some examples. So you have to pick up somebody there where they are. I can be on a call. I can be with a stressed mother. I mean, just 20 minutes, to pick up something or to go to somewhere. In these 20 minutes, I can implant something in her, a seed in her that can, go in there and then start to do the work.
So it's part of planting the magic.
When you say magic and playfulness, it looks like that. It looks like, it's it's not really, it's not strategy, it's not concept, it's not work. No, it is. It is very structured. It's very made for you to really come to a power, to really come to a manifestation, to really come into a space where you feel your power. So magic is a good word, but I would say beyond. I would say it is essential. It is essential for every human being, every sentient being, not only human being, because we are all together in that unifying field, in that holographic being. Every sentient being, like how we behave to our cats and dogs and animals, how do we behave to our trees and waters, how do we behave, like this is, these beings are also unfolding and wants to work with us, wants to be inspired by us, ignited by us, so it is a very much interconnected, very much interwoven tapestry of work, so to speak. It's actually a duty. I don't want to use that word because it's not really resonant with the field, but it is our duty to unfold like a lotus, to blossom our 1,000 petals. It's our duty, it's our nature, it's our yearning, it's our deepest, deepest desire.
Yeah, well, maybe whether we're conscious of it or not, as above, so below. I really believe that everything in nature is, if you look at all the spirals, all the fractals, it's like it's everywhere. The eye is, the iris, and then you take that out in the sun and it's the same shape. I mean,
Yes, and you are a sound explorer. The sound as well. Like you just one sound is it's like a stone in a pond. It will permeate the whole being, the whole existence, the whole multiverse. It will have impact. Because the main question that the people will come to me is, oh, but you know what? I'm just one person, and I'm just wanting my business to thrive and my kids to be okay.
Yeah.
And then I don't really have impact. You do. We have seen this in a resort in the US. We have seen when just a few wolves were introduced inside of this PO ecosphere, what happened? This whole nature regenerated in just 15 years.
Yeah.
So don't underestimate your potency. Don't underestimate your power. Don't underestimate your vision.
Yeah.
I would say overestimated.
I love that.
Like children, they just come into the room and they are the kings of the
Yeah,
kings. They are the
totally.
Superman of the Superman. It's exactly like that. You play with it. You uncover it. You create it. You co-create it. You are in this field. You are dancing exactly like the electrons and the protons and the minor atoms and the quantum atoms. It's always in the play, in the movement, in the impacting, influencing, inspiring, igniting.
I love it. It's powerful. I would love to have you on again. We can talk another time about go into even more depth into this work, and we can go into more depth about Egyptian cosmology. And I think that this was a great interview. And I got to know you in ways that, there's so much behind the scenes about your work that I don't know about. And it was really nice to get to peek into it and have you explain and share. And I just feel like there's such a huge wealth of knowledge. And I really appreciate how not careful, but how your language is constructed around life and growth and expansion and beauty, and just being aware of how we speak and what we're sort of bringing into the field through our language. I learned a lot from you today just in that. So
Thank you so much. Such a great being to be with you and to ponder about these revelations. I don't really call it knowledge as much. That's why I'm actually working with this childlike being. It's more living than knowing. It's more being than doing. It's more creating than pushing. It's more unfolding than developing. It's an unfolding process. But everywhere where we look at the seas, the waters, the skies, the trees, there is always this surging of energy, of movement, of yearning, of desire towards the light. So although I don't like this word light worker or energy worker, because I stopped you to use it, why? I can tell you why. Because I don't like to put it into the box of spirituality or only the people who are interested in this and that and woo-woo stuff. And no, it's very essential to be in that space and to pick up the people where they are and then try to put it into a language that they can understand, that they can resonate with.
Mm-hmm.
And as you know, as a musician, when you tune the fork and there is one fork that is dominant, she can permeate the whole frequency.
Totally.
Thank
Thank
you
you so
so
much.
much. And it's such
Yeah.
a joy, a deep joy to see your podcast, thriving and blossoming. It's time. It's time.
Love you, and I look forward to talking to you soon. Thank you so much for listening to the Heartlight Sessions podcast. If you'd like to learn more about Ima's work and offerings, click the links in the description below. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify podcasts, please consider giving us a rating. 5 stars would be preferable. We're brand new, getting off the ground, and we could use your help. Thank you. The Heartlight Sessions podcast is executive produced and hosted by me, Janae Halstead. It's edited, mixed, and mastered by me too. And that theme song you hear, it's called Heartlight. And yep, you guessed it, it's from my record Disposable Love. Got questions about a certain healing modality? Or about heart-centered healing? Or maybe you just need some advice on life, love, or creativity? Send it my way. Email me at letters@heartlightpodcast.com. Until next time, I'm Janae Halstead, and thanks for listening to Heartlight Sessions. Turning on my heart light, 1,000 volts of sunshine.